Ulquiorra is a very polarizing character. He's one of the most popular characters in Bleach, Shonen, anime, and manga in general, right? So obviously he has a lot of fans. He's very recognizable, and I'm one of those fans. I really love Ulquiorra. He's my favorite Bleach character, and he's just one of my favorite characters in fiction in general. If you're a fan of Bleach, especially, you likely know this, that a lot of people don't have a taste for him, and I feel that a lot of times he's often poorly described or characterized as just some edgy emo edgelord or whatever, and I'm 14 and this is deep, you understand? You're completely allowed to have that, but I just want to, I'm making this sort of as a defense because a little offended, I guess. And obviously you don't have to change your opinion or any of that, but I really like him, and this video will be kind of a defense of that. So just to describe, he's not the most charismatic of villains. They, like your Dios or Doflamingos or Pains or whatever, but I really like, or even Aizen's, right? Because, well, he has a very monotone personality. He's not like, like a Vegeta type. He's very, like, calm and calculated. And the Espada are written with an aspect of death in mind, and he symbolizes nihilism as his aspect of death. He has a really depressing backstory. If you've never read his backstory, which is in the manga and everything, it's rough to say the least. It's essentially him being isolated and us being dead inside, and a little bit darker, but I don't want to, we'll get to it in a bit. He has a very rationalist enlightenment view of life. He criticizes humans for their emotions and the heart, and not just criticizes, there's more nuance to it, but I'm just trying to introduce him. I want to get to like what his character and what his story is trying to say, or what Kubo, at least my interpretation and of him is, right? And I think the point is that Ulquiorra sees, obviously he's nihilism, so he doesn't see any point to his existence or anybody's, for the matter of fact, and that's sort of and he tries to boast about that by killing people and destroying them by putting the little hole in their heart. Life is suffering, right? And so he tries to escape his suffering through throwing away the heart. He makes a very compelling argument, because, well, if something allows you to feel pain, sorrow, despair, loneliness, why shouldn't you get rid of it? It seems to be the logical thing to do. A lot of people try to either repress their sorrow or anger, or try to make rational arguments to think themselves out of it. But especially if you've ever been depressed, you can understand that this doesn't work very well, and even when it does, it's very temporary, and somehow that's going to come out, whether you lash out or break down, or just something worse happens. If dealt with inappropriately, that you'll inevitably fall into despair, as he's in that sort of state in this series. He can see just how awful of a situation he's in, right? And we can really sympathize with him, but we can't really tell just how much pain he's really in, because he obviously doesn't tend to show emotion. But Orihime and Ichigo, they sort of break into that and help him through that. But I want to express that what gives life joy is the fact of despair, fear, and sorrow, right? If you try to escape all suffering, you only become more miserable. All the positive aspects of life will become completely meaningless to you. That's nihilism. It may be true that the heart can cause pain, lust, anger, sorrow, but throwing it away means that you feel nothing. Not even pain is sometimes better than nothing at all. escaping all suffering means to not even exist. What it means to be human is not to try to reach that state. What gives life meaning is the possibility of happiness, friendship, love, family, etc. But also sadness, fear, hardships, struggles. What makes the act of lying down and turning on the TV such a relief is because you just spent 8 hours of the day at work or school or whatever you needed to do. If we really had zero fear or hardships, we would be completely empty, a similar state to Ulquiorra. Maybe even pain and discomfort is better than anything. So this is from Kierkegaard, the famous Danish philosopher and everything, existentialism, father of. But I think he explains what Kubo is trying to metaphorically express with Ulquiorra. So this is just a little passage I took from him. So he says, I'm paraphrasing a little bit, so I apologize. You are going on, I said to myself, to become an old man without being anything and without really undertaking to do anything. Everywhere around you, you see all in literature and life who makes existence easier and easier. When everything combines to become easier, there remains only one possible danger, namely, that the ease becomes so great that it becomes altogether too great. Then there is only one want left, though it is not a felt want, when people will want difficulty. Out of love for mankind and out of despair from my embarrassing situation, seeing that I had accomplished nothing and was unable to make anything easier than it had already been made, and moved with a genuine interest in those who make everything easy, I conceived it as my task to create difficulties everywhere. In conclusion, I'll leave you all with this. Life may be filled with suffering, but the way to combat this is not to try to completely escape fear, dread, anxiety, because, well, first of all, it's not humanly possible. It only makes things worse. It'll only make the suffering you're already in just a lot more unbearable. Even if we could somehow get to a state of Ulquiorra or even grimmer from Monster, where we've fallen to this, or we accomplish this ultimate nihilism, life becomes completely empty. It's as if he's a dead body mindlessly roaming through an empty desert, which I guess is pretty fitting. He finally starts to understand the beauty of the human spirit is not to run away from your fears, but to move forward in the face of fear. And only then, in that darkness, can we learn what it means to be strong, how to deal with those anxieties, dread. To live a life without fear, anxiety, pleasure, sorrow, and joy is not to live at all. He understands what it means to live in the face of despair when he understands what it means to be human. Right at the end of his life, he understands why people choose to live in such a despairing world. He understands what the heart is. I know life is very difficult, but everyone has something that is the heart to them. And even when it feels like the whole world is pushing you down just for being you, I promise, tomorrow will always be a better day. You're much stronger than you think.
この手のひらにあるもの